So this is a tone. I wanted to make a quick thought video. I'm kind of beating myself up recently because I've had like 5 or 6 different ideas for thought videos, but I just put them off. I'm like, oh, I'll do it in like an hour. And then I just never do it and I forget what the thought was. So this is one I actually remember from last night. So I'm gonna try and do more of these because they're super easy and super quick to make. But last night, sorry, my nose is still clogged up. Last night, I was painting this painting, right? It's kind of hard to see. Uh, If I tilt it a little bit, you can see it better. So yeah, it's like there's a big candy cane here with pretty good detail, good shading, and the lettering that I put on it too has really good shading, good lighting. And I had this thought yesterday where I was like, if I put enough detail into it, they'll look into the meaning. And I thought, isn't that so dumb and weird? Because even me, who my favorite artists are people like Warhol, Basquiat, um, Liechtenstein, but he's not a very good example. But people who aren't realism oriented, even myself, ended up thinking, oh man, I need to put more detail into it so they'll take a second look and they won't think it's like a little kid's artwork, which is kind of sad. But I kind of do the same thing sometimes, where it's just when you see something that has really good shading, you automatically give it that, what do they call it? Maybe respect or esteem, um, as if it's a more important artwork than it might be. Um, for example, there's tons of, I mean, you go on Instagram, look up landscape art. You can find a million different paintings that really mean nothing. They're just kind of like, they're good looking, great detail, great shading, great color, but there's no real meaning behind them. And I get it, your art doesn't have to have a meaning, but I like it better when art does. And with my art personally, everything I do has a meaning. Um, I never really make something just to make it look cool. And if I do, I later find a meaning to give to it, which I think is what a lot of people do. But I just found it kind of weird that I was thinking this, that I was thinking, oh, I need to up the shading, up the detail, so that people will take a second look and consider it more, uh, maybe it was like a more mature painting. So it was just kind of a weird thought I was having. Once I recognized it, I really don't know how to combat this because this is kind of how it goes. And it's a similar thing with design too, because if your designs are too simple, people can think that they're beginner level. Just like the paintings, if your shading is too simple, if you don't have enough shading, a lot of people can assume it's a younger level, just like lines. So if I see a painting that's the lines are really messy, they aren't very clean, and there isn't much shading on the people, I can assume that's a younger person, even though a lot of great people like Picasso um, made these paintings that are some great paintings. I don't know, I'm not a huge Picasso fan, but I like a lot of his stuff. So I don't know how to combat this. I don't know how to move forward with um, my art because I like detail. That's one thing I like. When I look at something like text, I like when it glistens. I like when people paint like every little light detail. Like those old Coke ads where they have like the bottle is just there's so many lights on the bottle and it's just like super detailed. I love that stuff. But where's the line between putting detail in that you like and putting detail in that you think will get you recognized more and get people to respect your paintings more? Because I don't think the goal of what I'm doing should be to gain respect, even though I'm young and that's probably what I should be doing. I don't think that's an authentic way to go about making art, just to gain respect and up your level, as an artist. So it feels disingenuous to throw a bunch of extra detail in these paintings. Like, here, I'll show you. I'll grab one real quick. So, this one, for example, I put a ton of detail into. It's hard to tell, but so that's all acrylic. Um, so all that detail, I like the detail, but At the same time, I find myself off and on struggling with, why am I putting this much detail into these people? I've spent probably like 5 or 6 hours on that, just shading the people, probably. And that is like otherworldly to me in usual with painting, because I'm more of a, okay, if I draw a stick figure, it's a person there. I don't have to explain to you that that figure's a person, so there's no real reason for me to spend an hour making sure the skin is shaded realistically. And it doesn't really enhance the point or the story behind the art. It just makes it look prettier to catch the viewer's eye and to give it more respect. So that's where I reach this crossroads where it's like, with some things like typography, I love the detail, I love the lettering, the lighting and stuff, and like I like shiny objects, of course. But there's a point where I feel like I'm forcing myself to have more detail than I would want to normally, or even would prefer to have. Um, so like the one I just held up, it could have been designed more effectively, maybe by even having less detail on the people, because it distracts from the story I'm trying to tell. But yet I put it on there so that I would get that respect and gain that extra look, and the notoriety of having this more detailed painting, because people don't expect you to be able to do stuff like that when the majority of my work in the past has been, or stuff that I've shown has been, very abstract, very impressionist. So when I walk up with something like that, they're like, "Oh, you can do this too?" It's like, "Yeah, I can, but what's the point?" I'm just doing it to impress you at that point. So I kind of find myself, I think with this next show I'm preparing for, there will be a lot of detail, but I'm guessing in future shows, I'll back off a bit from that detail. I think I'll go back to more of an abstract because it's distracting from the story. I don't want you staring at how great the eyes look. Even though I like doing eyes, I like making them look great. I don't want you looking at how great the skin's shaded or how realistic the hair looks or something, because that's not the point of the painting. That's not the story. I didn't make a painting to show you how good I can draw eyes, or how good I can draw hair or paint hair, or how great I can shade a candy cane. That's not the point. You're supposed to look at why the candy cane's there. Why is there a cross there? Why does it say rage? Why is there a big strike through the middle, separating the candy cane and the cross? Why is the rage in the middle of the two? So that's things that you can decipher. And just for a quick example on that, these paintings, this series is kind of about temptation. So when you see rage in the middle, on one side you see candy, and on the other side you see God. And if you're a Christian, you know that, what is it called? Gluttony, eating too much food, is a sin. Yet we all stuff ourselves. We all stuff ourselves. I stuff myself. So when you see that, there's rage in between God and gluttony. And I think I'm gonna add in a woman down here too licking the candy cane. That's one of my ideas. I don't know if I'm gonna follow through on it, but just so once you stop looking at the shading of the candy cane and start looking at why the things are where they are and why they're there in the first place, and less how good they look, that's when you get the real meaning of the painting that I'm trying to tell. Um, so that's my frustration. That's my little rant. Um, I think detail gets in the way of a story sometimes, because sometimes it can have the opposite effect too, where if a painting is very abstract, you instantly go to the story method because you're like, oh, I'm not supposed to care about the detail. Even though a lot of people like Basquiat hid little details in the paintings, people would sometimes just ignore it. They'd be like, oh, guy yelling, this is about anger. It's like, come on. Like sometimes he would put specific dates or quotes that would call back to something that happened near the time he painted it. So it's a really weird thing as the artist making stuff and putting yourself in the shoes of the observer, when you realize that, when you are realizing how your paintings will be perceived, it's weird to think about how much detail you actually want in the painting, because I think it's a fine line, because people can get easily distracted by too much abstraction and too much detail, and it draws away from the point of the painting. So that's me as a designer looking at this painting, because I kind of do that with all my paintings. I'm designing these paintings. So if I want them to if I want them to see this story, how do I design this so that it's easily perceived but not just words on a page? Just like my wallpaper Pure. I could make this wallpaper be a little kid playing with a puppy, and you would eventually get to the word pure probably. But by just having pure there, boom, I have the word. But now it's boring. No one wants to look at that. So that's kind of the thoughts.